Hello, listeners. I'm Timstradamus, and it's a chilly Monday morning. With me, as always, is my talented and beautiful co-hostess, Voyse.
Good morning, Timstradamus, and welcome to all of our snow fairies and elves.
Ooh.
Timstradamus,
Yes.
who's your favorite, Santa Claus or Krampus?
I'm going to have to say Santa, because the images of Krampus are terrifying.
That's very true. Now, since apparently you're not a fan of Krampus, do you know what his weakness is?
Cramps.
That's everyone's weakness. But his true weakness is if he ever knocks on your door, give him a piece of fruit, like an apple or an orange. He'll actually sit down and have a polite conversation, and then he'll leave. That's actually a part of the lore of Krampus.
This is why we always have fruit in the house.
Always an apple, always an orange.
For this reason. For our new listeners, Voyse and I enjoy reading and talking about stories from the internet that are interesting, funny, and dramatic. Because of our love of stories, we've come together and created this channel to share with you those experiences.
And hopefully give you an orange or an apple to keep Krampus away.
Some people.
So, Timstradamus, I know that you usually ask me what I've brewed for you in the morning. However, I'd like to go ahead and steer us in a different direction. What are your two top favorite Christmas movies?
I only have one. Everything after that is subpar.
Ooh.
And it is A Muppet's Christmas Carol. Because Michael Caine as Ebenezer is my spirit animal.
He's that amazing for you, huh?
Yes.
Impressive. Well, I have two this year that I really love. The first one is The Polar Express. And then on top of that, I think my second favorite would have to be Jim Carrey's The Grinch.
Solid picks. Well, listeners, we look forward to hearing what your top two movies are that get you in the mood for Christmas.
Yes, I enjoy the recommendations.
So now, Voyse.
Timstradamus.
What have you brewed for me this morning?
Today, I went back to the basics and I crafted just a breakfast tea.
Oh, I don't know what that is. Okay.
A breakfast tea is a very robust blend. It tends to have bitter undernotes, but in order to kind of edge that off, I added a dash of milk.
This tastes really good. I think this is a 4 out of 5.
Yes. Well, while you go ahead and enjoy your robust tea, why don't we delve into these stories? For any listeners wanting to follow along, all story links are in the description below. For our first story. Am I the a-hole for showing up to my boyfriend's house to a family dinner in lingerie?
Lingerie.
My boyfriend, 35, and I, 29, have been dating for 6 months. On Friday night, we made plans to have a night in I was going to go over. We planned on making dinner together, watch movies, and I was to spend the night. On Thursday, I had some holiday shopping to do. While shopping after work, I saw some cute lingerie. I thought I'd surprise my boyfriend with it on Friday night, so I bought it. Friday after work, I took a shower, did my hair, makeup, and got dressed. It's pretty cold where we live, so I put on some knee-high boots, the lingerie, and a knee-length coat only, LOL, and headed to my boyfriend's apartment. He gave me a key recently, so I used it to get in since he knew I was coming over and had plans together. To my surprise, when I got there, he was not alone. His mom was in from out of state. This was my first time meeting her. My boyfriend and his mom kept telling me to take off my jacket, but I couldn't because all I was wearing was lingerie. After I couldn't say no any longer, the only thing I could come up with was asking my boyfriend if he could give me my sweats. I kept at his apartment because I was so cold. When we got into his room, he asked me why I was being so weird about my jacket and why I wouldn't take it off. When I told him, he busted out laughing. I did as well, to be fair. He told me he was sorry about his mom, but she came in out of state on a surprise visit. After recovering from the laughter, my boyfriend, well, being a guy, said, "Can I at least see before you go change?" I let him because that was the whole point. He walked over to kiss me. While he was kissing me, his mom opened the door and lost it. She started calling me a whore and screaming about me fucking her son in her face. My boyfriend was angry and started yelling at her as well about her being unfair and not knocking on the door before opening it. Needless to say, meeting her went terribly. My boyfriend kicked his mom out, and I feel so bad about the whole thing. So, am I the a-hole? The only reason I sort of feel like the a-hole is because of the issue and rift between my boyfriend and his mom now. I don't know what else I personally could have done differently.
What a fun story to get us started out with. Nothing too serious here outside of, I guess, the OP's boyfriend's mom having zero boundaries. There's 2 of them that were crossed. She shows up unannounced out of state. I don't know how many parents do that to their kids, especially when they do live out of state, because things have to be coordinated and planned. Now, maybe those type of relationships exist and they happen more often than I know, but in my mind, that's not really a thing. So for her to have done that seems really weird. And the second boundary that was crossed is she goes into the bedroom, because I think that's where they're having this conversation at
Correct.
the end. Okay. Who goes into adults? These are adults. Who goes into their adult son's bedroom after they go into it with their partner? Unannounced. No knocking.
Disrespectful adults.
Yeah. Zero boundaries. And for me, that would make you not the a-hole. I just see this as a fun little story that got turned into something it shouldn't have been. It's very odd. Like, you're the one that shows up out of town unannounced, and then you have problems with other people's lives. It just seems like our OP was trying to do something spontaneous and fun, and unfortunately, the mother happened to be there.
Well, the consensus on Reddit is our OP is definitely not the a-hole. In fact, we had one mother on there say, first, that boyfriend's mother definitely doesn't know boundaries and is a bit unhinged. Aside from that, she saw that her son and our OP went into a room and closed the door. That should have been the end of it. If there was something that she saw when that door was opened, it would be more weird that they weren't doing something behind that closed door. If anything, one of the best things that I read from the commenter section was, all in all, you know your boyfriend will stick up for you, so that's really a win.
And that's very true. You got to have your partner's back, even when it comes to family.
Agreed. Well, let's go ahead and go into our next story and see about this birthday party. Am I the a-hole for shoving a kid away after he tried ruining my birthday dinner? I, 15 female, went out for dinner with 3 of my closest friends for my birthday. I had planned this for weeks, and I was really excited since I had never done anything like this before. We go out, and overall, the dinner was great, and I was having a really good time. We decided for dessert to get a cake, and the waitress put candles on it. While I was about to blow out the candles, a little boy, about 4 or 5, runs over and tries to blow them out. I awkwardly let him because I realize he's just a kid. I was more annoyed at his mother, who was just sitting there and watching the whole ordeal instead of intervening. After he blew them out, he looked like he wanted to eat the cake too, which I was 100% sure I would not let him do. It was my cake that I paid for, that I wanted to share with my friends. I immediately put my arm to block him, but he doesn't stop. Meanwhile, his mom does nothing. He keeps trying to eat the food. After a few minutes of this, I shove him away and he hits his back on the wall. That's when he begins crying and screaming. The mom comes up to me and berates me for hurting her son. My friends try to defend me, but the mom doesn't listen and keeps yelling. At this point, I'm annoyed and just want to leave. So we pay the bill and we go to a park and eat the cake there. I don't know if I'm the a-hole or not. My friends think that it wasn't my fault, but I do feel bad for shoving that boy that hard. So am I the a-hole?
So I think this type of story will always fall, for me anyway, onto the parents of the child. We have a 15-year-old, and she's planning a whole little shindig with her friends. Good for you. She said she spent a couple weeks planning this all out, and initially when you're reading this to me, I'm like, oh no, they're 15-year-olds. Is another one of her friends still fairly immature and they're going to destroy the cake? So I'm happy that it wasn't a friend. It was just someone's child. She says this is a 4 or 5-year-old.
Correct.
Comes out of nowhere. She lets the child blow her candles out. I don't know how many people would have even allowed that to have happened. So I see her kind-heartedness. After that, though, I guess the kid proceeds to, I'm guessing, try to reach for the cake. So she's barring him off. But the mother is watching this entire encounter happen and doing nothing. When you go out in public with your family, especially when you have younger children, you do have a certain amount of etiquette that you need to have taught your kids, so you don't get in these type of situations. I think that's completely ridiculous that she had to get to the point where I'm not sure how hard she shoved the child. See, that's where you went completely wrong. Don't put your hands on people. I understand wanting to make sure you're keeping your cake to you, but even if that was a grown person, the second you put your hands on somebody, unless it's in self-defense, you're inviting some things. A cake can be replaced. You getting in trouble or potentially being put in jail or hurt for what? Material? Not worth it. Not in my mind. But I also can understand you wanting to keep the cake and make sure that the child that's not yours ruins it for you. So in my mind, OP, I don't believe you would be the a-hole. I would just say the only thing I didn't like was you shoving the 5-year-old. That one was probably the only thing that gave me pause, but I don't believe that would solely make you the a-hole. Just next time, again, keep your hands off people.
So the consensus on Reddit is that our OP is definitely not the a-hole. In fact, it is, as you've said, Timstradamus, while you're not the a-hole for how you're feeling, and honestly, the situation shouldn't have been on a 15-year-old to try and control, but the adult that was around to actually correct, they said that our OP could have handled it better, and this should be just a learning experience. Now, let me go ahead and actually provide to you an edit that our OP actually put in. They said, "Thank you everyone for your advice. It definitely means a lot to me. I've been looking through the comments and I've seen a lot of people saying I should have yelled and said something to the mother, which I agree with. I didn't because I really wasn't intending on beginning an argument and causing a scene. I also have some problems relating to social anxiety, which makes it harder for me to confront others, but nevertheless, I should have said something. I've also seen some people calling me anti-child, which is definitely not the case. I love kids and I have 3 younger siblings. A lot of people have said that shoving him was way too harsh. I want to add that the boy was physically fine. He wasn't hurt, just angry he wasn't getting his way. Another thing, something I forgot to mention, was that yes, we did get another cake, not just because of him spitting all over it, but because he had put his hand inside it and grabbed a big chunk of it."
Oh.
If anything, for me, I also side with how everybody views this, at least the consensus. Our OP's not the a-hole. She's 15. She's definitely learning social cues and has admitted to us in the edit that she's a little bit of a socially awkward penguin, so to speak, where when something happens, sounds like she probably just shuts down or basically tries to avoid as much confrontation as possible at the expense of herself. Now, I will say, I don't think that she should have paid for another cake. That should have been on the mother that couldn't control her 5-year-old.
Yeah, a lot of that onus does fall on the mother, and she thinks that she's in the right to let her child roam around a restaurant, getting into people's things. And I don't agree with people saying she's anti-child. That is her cake that she bought. She even let the kid blow the candles out. And at that point, how much more does she owe that situation? She was very tolerant, in my opinion, outside of the shoving. That one I can't get behind.
I definitely agree with that. I think she was trying to allow a kid to have that little bit of fun when it came to the candles, but by no means doesn't mean that it's okay for someone to take anything that belongs to you, even if they are just 5. Now, we're getting close to Christmas, so let's see about this Christmas bonus that I'm going to read us. Am I the a-hole for not wanting my husband to give his Christmas bonus to my in-laws? My husband and I both have professional careers, and despite being fairly young, we have made good choices that have allowed us to buy a home and build a modest savings account while also caring for our 3 young children. We have managed to avoid accumulating any debts, apart from our mortgage. This meant delaying purchases and saving up to pay with cash. Currently, we both drive cars that are over 10 years old, and we had hoped to replace one of them within the next 2 years without incurring any debt. On the other hand, My husband's parents are financially irresponsible. For their anniversary last year, they bought matching Teslas, even though they own a new truck that cost them over $100,000, and had recently remodeled their home. Despite this debt, having 15 years before retirement and no savings or retirement funds at all, my father-in-law decided to cut his hours to part-time work because he disliked his 1-hour commute. Just a few weeks later, he and my mother-in-law took a 2-week vacation to the Bahamas. When they returned, he was let go from his job. Now, with my mother-in-law only working 3 days a week as a receptionist in a doctor's office, they are facing financial struggles. Typically, everyone comes here for Thanksgiving. Since we have plenty of room for everyone to stay without getting a hotel, it's always worked nicely and saves us from traveling with 3 children under 5 across the country. However, since my mother-in-law used up all of her PTO on their Bahamas trip, we had to fly there instead. Airfare for the 5 of us was close to $3,000, plus another $800 for the Airbnb since my in-laws only had room for my sister-in-law, her boyfriend, and college roommate. It was hectic, but we were not too upset over the cost since my husband had just learned he'd be receiving a $10,000 Christmas bonus. My husband was excited, but chose not to mention the bonus, not wanting to come across as bragging when they were struggling. However, my sister-in-law found out about the bonuses through a friend of hers who also works for the same company and brought it up during Thanksgiving dinner. Later that night, on our drive back to the Airbnb, my husband said his mom had approached him privately and asked if he would consider giving them his bonus as a gift, since it was an unexpected blessing and he was torn. I understand that it's not my bonus and that we should want to help family. However, I can't help but feel they partially contributed to their situation. I'm also upset that outside of my mother-in-law letting us know that she will not be buying gifts this year, even the grandkids, my in-laws have not adjusted their spending habits. They still shop at Whole Foods and just updated both their iPhones. While we drive older cars, cook at home, and shop for sale items at Walmart. Outside of this Thanksgiving trip to her house, in the 7 years we've been married, never have gone on a vacation. I don't know what to do. I feel guilty because I know my husband hates to see his parents struggling, but I can't help but feel a little resentment and feel because they have made poor choices, our family will be further behind. Am I the a-hole?
Well, let's go on a Christmas journey.
Humbug.
A lot of humbug. Your in-laws are not struggling. They put themselves in that struggle. There's a difference. Now, I'm all for people helping family. During tough times, it sounds like the father-in-law just got laid off. I guess the second they got back from their Bahamas trip. And that is unfortunate, but she also tells us in the same story that they recently bought 2 brand new Teslas.
And also bought 2 new iPhones.
On top of, I think they had recently got a new truck. From my understanding, they're about retirement age soon. And they're making big ticket purchases. I'll say this. What it sounds like is the parents are kind of doing this thing where their backup plan is the kids.
It's YOLO living.
Yeah, and it's terrible. RP says they haven't been on a family vacation yet.
Not in 7 years.
I think the one thing that rubs me the wrong way is they normally have the Thanksgiving at their house because they have the room. And yes, it's a lot cheaper to stay home with 3 kids. She says it's over $3,000 just to get everyone on the plane. And then however much money it was for the B&B.
Another $800.
Because the parents couldn't even put them up in the house. You two couldn't have done the math on that and said it's probably cheaper that we just go there. In my mind, if that's what we're looking at, the OP and her husband would have been better off just paying for the parents to come out for Thanksgiving.
Well, remember, the only reason why they didn't come out for the Thanksgiving was because the mother-in-law used up all her PTO going on that Bahamas trip.
Okay, that was the rub. Okay. In my mind, OP, I don't believe you'd be the a-hole for having resentment over the situation. They're being irresponsible. You guys are unfortunately their backup plan. And that's the conversation you need to have with them, especially if you know how they're spending. Because within the next 10 or 20 years, they're going to be retired. And at that point, they definitely need to learn how to budget their money, because if they don't, then that's going to be a problem for you and your husband.
Well, the consensus on Reddit is that our OP is definitely not the a-hole. And not the a-hole for a lot of reasons. The first being, our OP is very financially aware of their situation, has made the proper sacrifices to ensure that their family and their needs are met first. But let me go ahead and actually provide you with an update from our OP before I delve further into my thoughts on the situation. Update. Thank you for all the responses. To answer a few questions I've seen. 1. I heard them discussing that they are upside down on the vehicles, more so on the truck, because they put almost just under 80,000 miles on it between my father-in-law commutes, as well as visiting my sister-in-law at college over the past 2 years. I believe that was their reason for buying the Teslas, since they are in a rural area and the commute was taking a lot of fuel, also the reason they are not considering selling them. 2. I do not believe that they can get assistance due to their home. When they downsized 5 years ago due to the area they live in, they bought it for $1.5 million. Mother-in-law was salty about the smaller house, but father-in-law wanted to get out of the city. 3. Sister-in-law has another year of college and plans to move in with her boyfriend next semester. She doesn't work. Her boyfriend graduated last year and works in IT. The person sister-in-law knows at the company doesn't directly know my husband, but knew some departments received a large bonus this year. My sister-in-law thought it was his department and asked if he had received one too. 4. It was taxed and is a little over $6,000 now. 5. I have not said anything, but I do feel that this would not help them, since this is not the first time they have used money for other things. Part of my husband's recruitment package was student loan reimbursement up to $12,000. Pre-grad needed his parents' help, and they took out a parent's loan for $6,000. He sent his parents a check for the full amount so they could be paid off. A year later, they casually brought up it was due and needed to pay on it. When he asked about it, they said they had used the money for something else and kept the loan because the payments were low. I feel they do not know how to budget or have a desire to. Some people brought up Dave Ramsey. You are correct. That is how our family uses. A few years ago, my father-in-law tried to put my mother-in-law on a budget. I had just started doing my own hair. Mother-in-law noticed my products and started asking questions and said, I guess I need to learn how to do my own hair because father-in-law told me I need to cut things out. I brought up the program and their eyes glazed over. 6. I am also worried about it coming down to the need for them moving in with us. We did buy a large house because we planned to build equity and wanted the kids to each have their own room as they got older. After we bought our home, my mother-in-law mentioned they never lived in a home this large. We paid a third of what they paid for their home and put almost 40% down. 7. It isn't just his parents. I'm afraid sister-in-law has the same mindset. She has maxed out credit cards and bought a new car when there was nothing wrong with her old car. She's not working and doesn't have a plan for after college. She always calls us rich and for the holidays requests gifts that we can't even afford to buy ourselves. Every single meal out while visiting, either there or here, it is always assumed he will pick up the check. It's sickening watching all the unnecessary spending. Now, after reading all of this, commenters, of course, added more of their perspective on this. The first being that everyone in this situation is the a-hole except our OP. And they say it like this. Your in-laws clearly have spending issues. Huge spending issues detrimental to their financial health. and ensuring that they can even meet their needs in the future. And then on top of that, your husband, who isn't properly putting down boundaries and is essentially enabling his family to take advantage of not just what he's earning, but what you both are earning. Because that bonus, yes, he earned it, but it's for the house. It's for the family. It shouldn't just be on him to decide what to do with it. Because clearly both of you are sacrificing a lot. The fact that he's not ensuring that your family together is healthy first is very indicative that he's an a-hole in this situation as well. And I have to just point out there's something that's inherently manipulative to have the mother-in-law pull her son to the side away from our OP and request such a large sum of money, especially when there's a history of our OP's husband sending the money to pay off certain debts and it doesn't happen.
Yeah.
Well, I will say that the very last thing that our commenters actually gave to our OP as advice, you need to talk to your husband.
Yes.
He needs to realize that all of these problems have led to this resentment. And I can actually imagine that this is going to tax their marriage to a different extreme if he keeps allowing this to continue. Well, let's go ahead to our very last story of the day and check out a slutty elf. What?
Yeah, what?
Am I the a-hole for not letting a girl dressed as a slutty elf who ended up at my house borrow some sweats after she was uncomfortable and cold? I posted this yesterday on another sub, but they removed it because there was no interpersonal conflict, so no one got to vote. I mean, the conflict was between me and the girl and me and my sister. There's a small update since I did the original while I was at breakfast with my sister. Not sure where to begin with this. I guess last night, one of the more popular frats on campus was having a Christmas on the beach themed party. So all around the bar area were girls dressed in bikinis with vague Christmas themes. My roommate is dating this total nut job named Sydney, and as far as I know, they were broken up. Well, at like 2 a.m., he bombs through the door with Sydney and her friend in tow, both dressed like slutty elves, with way too much skin showing. My roommate and Sydney went to his room and still haven't come out. I was playing Fortnite, and the other girl said she was the designated driver and was stuck. Would she mind if I charged her phone and hung out until she knew what Sydney was doing? I said fine. Maybe 15 minutes later, she said something like, I know this is so weird for both of us, but I'm not here by choice. I just don't want to bail on my friend, but sitting here with a guy I don't really know in a bikini is weird and I'm cold. Do you have some sweats I can borrow? I see you every Monday and Wednesday and I promise I'll give them back. I told her no, I wasn't comfortable with that. She asked if I at least had a blanket. I found one in my roommate's spare room, but it was really small, and said I was sorry, it's the best I could do. She fell asleep on the couch and I went to bed. My older sister came to pick me up for breakfast and she saw the girl sleeping on the couch and asked why a half-naked girl is sleeping under a baby blanket. In the car, I told her what happened, and she basically got so mad at me saying I had about 30 opportunities to be a really decent guy and I blew it. She said it sounds like the girl was trying to do the right thing by her friend and I could have let her use sweats. I could have let her sleep in my bed while I took the couch. I could have said that she should go home and I drive Sydney home. But basically, I was an a-hole because I left an apparently nice girl in a vulnerable position and I didn't even care. She said that I need to grow up if I want to have friends and have some empathy if I ever want girls to like me. She has no idea if that girl was into me or not, but I missed a great practice round of treating someone in a nice way that they may reciprocate. When we got back to my house, my roommate, Sydney and the girl were gone. There was a sticky note on my door that said, "Thank you for letting me stay here. Sorry it was weird. Please say hello sometime. Nat." My sister said this was even more proof that I acted like an antisocial weirdo, and she was just being nice, and the reason I have never had a girlfriend is the way I acted last night. Am I the a-hole?
So before I jump into the story, I do have a question. It might sound like our OP may be neurodivergent. Does he ever fill us in on that?
So in the comment section, he does say that his teachers think that he may be autistic, but OP says that they've never been tested to confirm this.
Okay. Well, that might lead to why the situation got to where it got. And that's where I'm going to kind of look at it from. What we have here is someone who, I guess, from what I understand, is socially awkward. Because we can scratch out the fact that it's a girl. And he is socially awkward and he's never had a girlfriend. Because we are now told this through his sister. So minus all of that out of here. It just comes down to human decency. I'm guessing this is the wintertime. It's cold. And she's telling you she's cold. Now, I guess her name is Nat. She's there because she's trying to be a good friend for her friend. And she rode the couch to make sure she could give her friend a safe ride back home because she was designated driver. So good on Nat for just being a good human. She asks our OP if he had anything to give her. Sweats, I think.
Correct.
And he obviously did not want to give her any clothes. Fair enough. Everyone has their reasonings for why not to give the shirt off your back. You see that they're not dressed for the weather. And I don't know how cold or how warm they keep that home, but it sounds like they're college kids, so they're probably not running the heat. You save money by not doing those things, and college kids normally don't. He doesn't completely shut her down and say no. He goes and finds a baby blanket for a full-grown adult, and Nat just deals with it. His sister is correct. He missed a genuine opportunity to meet someone nice. And it has nothing to do with any type of romantic relationship starting from that. It's more just about meeting a nice, kind human and having a friendship. And it sounds like even though he did that, Nat at the end of it still wrote him a note saying thank you. Learn from these experiences, young man. There are kind people in the world, and if you want them around you, you in turn also have to give them what they give you. I believe in this situation that you are the a-hole. Kindness is completely free.
So the consensus on Reddit is that our OP is definitely the a-hole. For me, I have to put a softer "you're the a-hole," simply because I do understand that some people don't get the social cues at times. Now, let me go ahead and read one comment that I think really stuck out to me. They said, "Hi OP, I'm an astrophysicist. Hopefully I make the cut of people you'll listen to. I'm also autistic and have struggled with social situations. Helping others isn't a transaction. It's how our society functions. One reason to help others is that one day you'll need help from someone who won't personally benefit from helping you. This situation isn't a problem for you to put in a spreadsheet and analyze. You can't treat real life as an equation to be solved or a philosophical debate. The fact that so many people are voting you're the a-hole already tells you that you were wrong in this situation. Please get some support to help you learn how to navigate social settings. It sounds like you need therapy and to be screened for neurodivergent conditions. You're going to need social skills to live a good life. They'll help you find people to collaborate with, as working with someone with no social skills is a nightmare. Learning social skills takes effort, but it will improve your life and help you get the things you want. It's not easy, but it's worth it." Additionally, another commenter said, "This comment is a great example of an empathetic response. They related to you by imagining your perspective and giving you information and advice without any personal benefit to themselves, and while being very polite and kind. Some people need to be taught how to be empathetic, and it seems that you are one of those people. There's no shame in that. And now that you have overwhelming evidence that you need help in this area, you have the awareness you need to go fix the problem. I agree with many other people here that you should look for a therapist that specializes in neurodivergence and specifically tell them you need to learn social skills with an emphasis on empathy. Now, for me, I have to say I have dealt with, and when I was younger used to be, very socially awkward. I must say I find this to be more of an endearing story simply because I think a lot of individuals have come out to assist the OP with realizing that there needs to be more than just a logical view of a situation. Now, I think I've said this in a previous episode of ours, but my father is a very logical person and my mother's a very emotional person. I think it gave me a perspective on how to balance those two types of perspectives in my life. In this case, the way that I feel is that our OP is very logic-based. For them, things are very black and white. Doesn't seem to be that gray in the middle. I think through time and the perspective of our commenters that there might be a little bit more color coming to his life. And hopefully he does get the assistance to go ahead and assist with social cues, especially when it comes to an understanding of how to be empathetic towards other people's situations. Now, our OP did go ahead and add a little update. Let me go ahead and read that. So they said, edit. I said hello to Natalie this morning. She was very nice and accepted my apology and also said she was sorry for invading my space on Friday. She talks a lot, which I guess I would usually find pretty annoying, but I didn't seem to mind with her. It turns out we both have a break between classes, so we just stood there talking for about 20 minutes. Well, she talked. I just nodded my head. When it was time to leave, she said it was a really nice conversation, which made zero sense because I didn't say much, but I went against my instinct to correct her. She said she'd like to do it again sometime, and I said I would too. I really hope this leads him to either a really good friendship or just a really nice relationship.
Yeah, it sounds like OP took the criticism and advice, and hopefully he can get himself into some type of counseling and move forward in his life in a healthy manner.
Yes. And now I want to read a romance novel.
Well, was that our last story?
That was our last story.
Very cute one to end off on.
Yes.
Well, as our stories come to a close, don't forget, you see in the world what you carry in your heart.
If you have enjoyed listening to us read and talk about today's stories, please rate, subscribe, and turn on notifications for new content. We regularly post on Monday, Wednesdays, and Fridays. We would also love to thank all of our patrons for your continued support, especially through the holidays. We truly appreciate it.
Yes, we love and appreciate every single one of you. We would love to hear your opinions in the comments below. What did you think about the stories today?
Yes. Which one really tickled your fancy?
I think the last one was a really nice one.
Yeah, I actually really appreciate, especially the commenters. They were especially informative and kind when it came to their responses.
And that sounds like that got a lot further than just being mean, just to be mean. And remember, if you post it, maybe we'll see it on the internet.
I want some hot cocoa.